On this final episode of 2024, we'll have a chance to look back on this year and look forward to 2025. Rob will give us a rundown of the December events, and I'll be back later with your sports report. This is the Hanford Insider for Monday, December 16th.
This is the Hanford Insider, the podcast where we dive into what makes our community tick. From local stories and hidden gems to conversations with people shaping our neighborhood, we're here to celebrate, explore, and connect. Whether you're new to Hanford or a longtime local, this is your source for everything happening in our town, from events and news to unique conversations with people who make Hanford what it is. Thanks for tuning in. This is the last episode of the Hanford Insider until January 13th. After 50 episodes alone in 2024, I'm ready for a break. I'll be posting some best of episodes during the vacation, and I'll be back on January 13th with all new episodes for 2025. To prepare for these new shows, I need your help. I'm putting out a listener survey to get some feedback on the show. I'll be sending the survey out to my subscribers via email. If you're not a subscriber, you can go to HanfordInsider.com and join the list. I have a special surprise for you if you take the time to complete the survey. Your feedback is so important to me. I want the Insider to be a great community resource for you, but I need to know your preferences for programming. I want to thank those of you who have already completed the survey. I'm already putting some of the suggestions to use, and will continue to make the show better when I return in January. And now let's jump right into this week's community news. The Hanford City Council will be meeting on Tuesday, December 17th. There's a lot on the agenda for the new City Council. In the afternoon study session at 4, they'll be looking at options for setting up the Measure H Oversight Committee. They'll also be looking at next steps for Hidden Valley Park expansion. During the regular meeting at 7, things that will be up for approval include expanding the youth sports coordinator position from a part-time position to a full-time one, and approval of acceptance of several grant opportunities. The item that will receive the most attention is the fate of the downtown traffic and pedestrian improvement project. It seems that the project was just too costly, and the city staff is recommending rejecting the bids received and applying for ARPA funds to other projects that can be contracted by December 31st. This could include expanding the new concession restroom building at the Youth Athletic Complex and conducting environmental studies that need to be completed to expand Hidden Valley Park. This Christmas, the Episcopal Church of the Savior is sponsoring Christmas Around the World for their meal on Christmas Day. They're looking for anyone interested in preparing a special dish from another country to serve. They're also seeking musicians to perform at this holiday event. If you're interested, please email volunteer@scsavior.org. Here's some things coming up on our community calendar. On December 17th, 18th, and 19th, Kings County Animal Services is holding their annual drive-through microchip event for pets. If you're interested in finding out the best holiday light displays around, check out Hanford Holiday or Kings County Let It Glow on Facebook. They have driving maps available for these great trips. On Christmas Eve, Winter Wonderland will be hosting Storytime with Santa in the Civic Auditorium at 5 and 7 p.m. He'll be reading 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. Milk and cookies are being provided for free by Rosa Farms. Walk with the Doc will be held this Saturday, December 21st at Centennial Park beginning at 9 a.m. If you have an event coming up and you'd like some help getting the word out, let's work together. Send your information to hanfordinsider@gmail.com. Be sure to subscribe to my weekly newsletter to get a complete calendar of events. We are here at the end of 2024. Can you believe it? Gosh, it has gone so fast. It's been an incredible year in the city of Hanford, and I'm so blessed to have on the show today the superintendent of the Hanford Joint Union High School District, Mr. Victor Rosa, Mario Cifuentez, the city manager for the city of Hanford, Brian Johnson, our community relations manager, and our vice mayor, Mr. Travis Paden. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So we kind of have a popcorn topics here today, and we're going to kind of pass the torch around the room just to kind of see, the things that have been happening in 2024 have been pretty remarkable. And I think it goes without saying, probably the largest item that caught the most attention, and especially the voters in Hanford, is the successful passing of Revenue Measure H. They had a Revenue Measure Committee that met and studied the needs for the city of Hanford, and the city council sent it out to the voters. And on November 5th, the voters of Hanford supported that overwhelmingly. So let's start there. Mario, what will Measure H do for the city of Hanford, and when can we start seeing some of these impacts?
First and foremost, and I know it's a strong word and people use a lot, but I believe Measure H will provide transformational funding for the city of Hanford and its residents. Most importantly, the funding will be used for a very detailed spending plan that was produced through the efforts of a revenue measure committee, was ultimately adopted by council, and sets the framework for how the funding will be spent over a 10-year span. It'll provide 20 new staff members in the first year. Let me go back a little bit. So council, at its last meeting, adopted ordinances which allow us to work with the state CDTFA to begin to collect that tax. The state guidelines state that the tax cannot begin to be collected prior to 110 days after the adoption of that ordinance. So as it stands now, we expect that the sales tax will go into effect the first week of April, and the first round of funding the city should start to receive around the 1st of July, which coincides with the beginning of our new 2-year budget. So it allows us to take that detailed spending plan and draft a budget around that. Now, understanding that the funding that comes in through Measure H will be protected in a separate fund. Like I mentioned, we have 20 new personnel, 8 police officers, 11 additional in the police department, including 3 professional staffers. We have an analyst in the fire department, 3 new firefighters that will be hired in the first year. Additionally, 2 code enforcement, 2 parks maintenance workers. And so those are much needed. They align with what the public said they wanted through our polling. And so we're very excited about all of it.
That's great. I know with all these new housing developments going in, I think of, I just got a message in my mailbox the other day about the new subdivisions that are being planned for north of Fargo. And I know that public safety is a big issue, and being able to put the officers and the firefighters where they're needed the most.
Yes, absolutely.
Speaking of new things in town, I know, Victor, we've done a lot of construction at the high schools. You've been on the show a number of times. Can you highlight maybe some of the great projects that have been completed in 2024? And I know your staff is really excited about that new district office in the old Hanford Sentinel building.
Absolutely. So I know I spoke about the bowl in the past, and most people at this point, we sort of unveiled the bowl in time for graduation. So a lot of the community has already been to Neighbor Bowl and seen the improvements there. There were multiple things that happened throughout the summer, and some components that are still happening right now. We know how construction goes. There's always things that are being fine-tuned, but that has been a tremendous benefit to all of our students and to the community to be able to have a facility that we can be proud of. Along with that, I think people were witnessing the beginning of the construction of the tennis courts and Kensington parking lot located at Hanford High School. Obviously a very visible corner. And so we wanted to make sure that all looked really sharp. That is pretty much complete other than lighting. The lighting has now been up there for almost 3 months without being able to turn on due to a little spat that we're having with the contractor between 2 contractors on that. But that's finally settled, and we should have all of the lighting working on the tennis courts for the public to be able to use here very, very soon. One other construction component that we're just starting the process for now that will have a benefit to Hanford High, but also Hanford West and Sierra Pacific, is our baseball areas have not had a true bathroom or concession stand ever. And so we are adding restrooms, concession, both at 2 of them at Hanford West, 1 at Hanford High, and then 1 at Sierra Pacific as well. And then you mentioned the district office. We're thrilled to finally be in full-blown construction there. It's a madhouse. There are a ton of workers in there getting things ready and remodeled. Our expectation is to move in at the beginning of April of next year. And we're just excited to be able to be not only in a new facility, but in downtown Hanford. I think I feel that it's really important when we were looking at facilities. It worked out beautifully. I literally made a cold call to the manager of the Hanford Center. I said, well, do you guys really need all this space for your 15 employees? She said, no, why? And I said, we'd like to buy the building. And within 60 days, we owned the building. And so it was such a great opportunity for us. And yes, it's a major remodel project, but putting us downtown is important. And then our current district office will become our Hanford Online Charter School. And so we're really excited to be able to move Hanford Online Charter off of our adult school campus and let it have its own facility in a very visible area here on Main Street.
Yeah, so that new district office is going to provide a lot of foot traffic downtown. And that brings us to our next topic, which is the Downtown Pedestrian and Traffic Improvement Project. And I know that there's a lot of moving parts to that.
Well, I think, outside of the downtown project, Rob, you're aware that lots of other exciting things are happening downtown, with the sale of the courthouse to Barrel House Brewing, to our efforts to implement some of the recommendations from our downtown strategic plan. And one of the biggest things we're focused on right now is public art in the downtown, working with Main Street Hanford and some other organizations and some art organizations, Urbanist Collective being one of them, to kind of kickstart what we're calling our Downtown Hanford mural program. And so I think that the goal for us within the first part of next year is to have a large scale Welcome to Downtown Hanford mural in the heart of downtown Hanford. A lot of moving parts on that as well. You would think just getting a mural up would be easy, but it is, in fact, takes a lot of people to say yes to it and actually create it. So very excited about that. And I think it's worth mentioning that we have some grants that we've applied for that would also be transformational for downtown Hanford. I think the biggest one that comes to mind is Fast Track Hanford, which was a project submitted through the Department of Transportation's RAISE grant. So we are hoping to hear more information about that soon, because we were deemed a project of merit in the last round. And so hopefully we're going to find out if that leads to an actual award. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Mario, Travis, this was approximately a $15 million request to basically transform an underutilized alley as kind of a connection method for pedestrians and bicyclists through the downtown. And so stay tuned on that. I gotta throw out my grant I applied for, the one and only one I've ever done. And boy, I don't know if I want to do that again anytime soon, but I know that staff is aggressive in the pursuit of grants here in the city. And my grant kind of piggybacked on Fast Track Hanford and also pertains to that same alley that runs through downtown, but it's a little more focused on the arts and bringing public art into that alley and activating an alley.
Yeah, for sure. That would be great. Hey, Victor, back to you for just a second. I know that you have a big event coming up with the Educational Foundation. It's an important part about recognizing outstanding alumni and outstanding staff. You want to give it a plug for that?
Absolutely. So in the last 5 years, I guess almost 6 years now that I since I came on as superintendent, we have really, really pushed hard to get our Hanford Education Foundation back and robust. And so part of that was a vision to have a district-wide Hall of Fame event. Well, here we are 5 years later. We've had multiple fundraisers and things that we need to do to get our funds up to this level. But we are in February 22nd of 2025, having our first Hall of Fame event. And that inaugural inductee group is really special. It's an amazing group. It's one of the most, from a team perspective, it's the Hanford High 2001 girls basketball team, one of the most successful, I shouldn't say one of, the most successful athletic team to ever come out of our district. And they are just superstars. And just a slew of educators and alumni who have just accomplished amazing things, not only within our community, but beyond. And so we're thrilled to be able to have an amazing event catered by the Vintage Press at the Civic Auditorium. It's kind of bringing all of the people in this room together that to show off the beautifully revitalized civic auditorium and just have a really classy event that celebrates education.
Yeah, for sure. 2025, we will actually be celebrating the 100th anniversary of the Hanford Civic Auditorium dedication. And as we discussed on the show a few weeks ago, Brad Albert is working with a committee to get plans together for quite a celebration. So stay tuned for that. You know, the City Council meets inside the Civic Auditorium, and that's probably a good segue to our next topic, which is our City Council. And we have with us Vice Mayor Travis Paden, who went through a really busy year with the City Council with some resignations and an election. Travis, can you give us a few highlights of the City Council in 2024?
Yeah, at the beginning of the year, in I believe March or so, Councilwoman Diane Sharp submitted her letter of resignation to the council in District C, as well as a month later, Councilwoman Kalish Morrow resigned as well. They were moving out of state and, with family, and they felt it was a good move on their part. So it led the council to be filling the seats. And when Councilwoman Sharp resigned, her wishes were to wait until the election, and the council at that time unanimously approved to wait until the November election to fill her seat. But when Councilmember Morrow resigned, she wanted to be a part of the application process or the appointment process. And at that time, we had 6 qualified, amazing candidates, and we went through an interview process. And at that time, the council appointed Councilmember Martin Devine to fulfill District B. As November comes along, and we are welcoming 2 new council members as of November 5th election. We have Councilwoman Nancy Howze representing District C and Councilmember Kimber Regan, who will be representing District B. And so we will have a full council, and we'll be ready. They were sworn in on last Thursday, and we will be ready for our first meeting on Tuesday, December 17th.
That's great. It's going to be an exciting time for the City Council. Mario, let's head back to you. I know that Hanford recently adopted a new camping ordinance, and it's been the subject of a lot of discussion among people in the city of, what is Hanford doing for the homeless? I know there's a new navigation center being planned. What can you tell the listeners about things that are going to be happening in that area of helping the unhoused community?
At this point, it's a multi-pronged approach. We can meet with Jeff Garner and KCAO that are leading the charge for their joint food bank and support center, which would include the navigation center, shelter beds. But council took action to adopt an amended camping ordinance after the governor put out his executive order that kind of changed direction on the requirement for low barrier shelters. That came on the heels of the United States Supreme Court overturning the Grants Pass case, which had limited the city's ability to address homeless issues. Obviously, as the public has seen, we've had a lot of impacts from the homeless, not only in our downtown, but across the community. There was quite an encampment that had set up at the old COS property out west of town, pursuant to the requirements of the executive order and consistent with our camping ordinance. We've begun to enforce the ban on encampments in the community. And we've, through a kind of coalition of our police department, code enforcement, and public works, have begun working together to address those encampments. We started with that one. Obviously, moved out a lot of folks. Folks saw them, in other places in the community. They've asked, hey, where can we go? And we just said, unfortunately, that due to the camping ordinance and also inclusion of elements in that ordinance that eliminates the ability for folks to camp on private property without the owner's permission, which typically we do have another program called the letter of agency. If property owners are having a problem with homeless on their property, again, I'll segue into that, and they should reach out to our community development department. Our staff is good at guiding folks through that process of establishing a letter of agency. The letter of agency has to be notarized, but we offer that service free. And we urge folks that have those issues to reach out to our community development staff. That also puts that property on the radar for our police department for area checks. The letter of agency allows the police department to enforce illegal trespassing on the property without the property owner having to contact the police department for each and every agency. The one thing that we're talking to folks about, and we've met with several large property owners, specifically some grocery stores and shopping centers, and we've urged them to eliminate areas that are natural congregations for the homeless. You'll see them in different areas where there's remnants of a wall or remnants of a fence that provides shelter, and that's what they're looking for, is shelter. And if folks can, make the small effort, and I understand there's generally costs that go along with that, but the costs in the long term are much less than addressing the impacts of the homelessness once they get set up on property. Private property owners still do have a requirement under the law to hold those possessions of individuals for 90 days. We've implemented a program ourselves. We have our community enhancement officer. We'll go out during these cleanups. We catalog all of the possessions that are not considered trash, and we have to hold all of those possessions and keep records of them for 90 days. The homeless have the ability to come to our corporation yard and retrieve those items, but we photograph them, we catalog them, and we keep them all in individual bins so that we can make sure that we uphold our responsibility under the law, but we also try to balance our responsibility with what the needs of the community are. And through our HEART team, through the police department and the public works, we're making an effort to keep those encampments from getting entrenched in our community. I think it'd be a nice segue to our app. That's something that can be reported to code enforcement for the new MyHanford app that we have out, that Brian's done a press release on, and we've seen some really good media coverage on that. And we do have where folks are utilizing it and starting to submit complaints for a variety of issues in the community.
Let's go right to the app, Brian. That is a nice segue, Mario. Tell us about the MyHanford app and how it can be used.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. MyHanford launched on Tuesday. It is what's called a CRM software, and I think that name, depending on who you ask, stands for different things, but customer relationship management is one of the terms used. And essentially it's a way for our residents to report issues that need to be addressed or things that need to be fixed or various problems they see. It's available both on their mobile device as an app or through our website from the homepage, clicking on the report button. So you can do it either way. And I think overall, the idea is just to make reporting those issues easier, more convenient, faster. The new software provides some new capabilities as far as kind of tracking and the timelines and deadlines on our end. But it also kind of acts as a communication tool, because on the homepage of the app, we have links to our website and news items, calendar, our social media pages. So it's kind of a multifaceted app, and we are seeing it being utilized already. I just pulled up my Apple developer account, and to date, we have 252 downloads through the Apple App Store. Don't have the Google Play statistics in front of me, but yeah, the submissions are coming in and the issues are being resolved. So we just ask that people be patient with us as we learn how to kind of master the app, and looking for feedback as well. But one thing I did want to mention is, for any kind of urgent or emergency issues, MyHanford probably isn't the place to report that. It's not monitored 24/7, and so use a little discretion when thinking about, is this an urgent issue? Is it an emergency? Because if so, you might want to be calling either 911 or the police department's non-emergency line. But we look forward to seeing how it goes in 2025.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to wrap this up here pretty quick, but before we do, I just wanted to highlight some of the other things that came up as highlights of the year for the listeners. They talked about the sale of the Kings County Courthouse to Barrel House Brewing. That's pretty exciting. The Renaissance Fair, for all intents and purposes, looks like it was a great success. The app, we mentioned the app. Of course, Winter Wonderland and the Santa experience is going great. And you can go to HanfordWinterWonderland.com and look up all of the availability for skating sessions. They have special weekday rates, group rates, 'Twas the Night Before Christmas reading with Santa Claus on Christmas Eve. Let's see what else we've got. The modernization project at the Hanford branch of the Kings County Library. We talked to Vicky Cifuentez a few weeks ago about that. So there's a lot to look forward to. And I know, Travis, the time that you've spent on the city council, and you've heard everything from the people that have come to the podium to speak, during public comment. You've had multiple people text you and call you and meet with you for coffee. What are some of the things that you're looking forward to in 2025 for the city of Hanford?
Well, one thing, as a city, we were just so fortunate to see Measure H pass with a 63% approval. And we as the council are looking forward to developing our Citizens Oversight Committee. And this oversight committee is going to be responsible for making recommendations to the council, making sure that expenditure plan of what we told our voters that we were going to spend the new sales tax revenue on. And so at our next meeting, we will be developing a criteria of how large that committee is going to be, what are the term limits and the years of the term and meeting times, so they could be prepared. So as our city manager mentioned, that first week in April will be the implementation of the revenue. And by July, we'll be receiving our first installment so we can start implementing the expenditure plan. There's so many things. And first and foremost is the transparency, making sure and having the community feel heard. And this MyHanford app is going to be one way that members of the public can seek out solutions or resolutions to some of the issues, but also showing the city that we mean what we say and we say what we mean when we are going to implement everything for the Measure H and putting that into play, moving Hanford forward. It's going to be a great time for Hanford in 2025.
And final word goes to our city manager, Mario Cifuentez. Earlier in 2024, we heard about the massive grant that was obtained to improve the East Lacey Corridor out towards the Costco Center. And how can you see that transforming that side of town? I know that when the Revenue Measure Committee did the tour, they drove around on a bus and the city leaders were kind of showing them, this is what the new 9th Avenue is going to look like. And we don't have a whole lot of time, but maybe just focus on the Costco, how that may change in 2025, that area out there.
Well, I think one of the key things that Brian and the vice mayor have heard when we've been meeting with retailers was a desire to locate at the Costco Shopping Center, but concerned that there weren't enough rooftops around and the connectivity with the downtown and other parts of the community. This project is going to create that connectivity. It will change ultimately what East Lacey looks like. I think you'll start to see a transformation of those properties consistent with the general plan and with more retail and commercial growth along that corridor. We've already seen activity and additional activity at the Costco Shopping Center. We have McDonald's that has already been to site plan review to go out there. There's a new Adventist health clinic that's working on getting permits to start building out there. That when folks come off the 43 and Lacey roundabout towards the west, there's a drive entrance that's currently been coned off for some time. That will make that drive entrance into that expansion of the Costco Shopping Center to the west there. And I think opening up that corridor, the eventual overpass over 198 at night that Caltrans is working on and has received CTC funding for design, will help move us forward and provide some great strides in East Hanford, all the way north down 9th to Heroes Park site there at Grangeville.
That's fantastic. Some great things to look forward to. 2024 has certainly had its challenges, and going into the holiday season, we've certainly experienced some tragic losses, and but the community is definitely resilient. I'm just thrilled to see the support that these families are receiving. And each of you have appeared on the show in 2024, and I'd like to thank you for your support of the show. And I know that the city is glad to hear from their representatives and leaders like you guys. And I just thank you for your commitment to the city of Hanford. And I want to wish you happy holidays and the best 2025 possible.
And Rob, I just want to thank you for your putting out the Hanford Insider podcast. It is one way to inform the public of what's going on in Hanford. And we just appreciate all the time and effort that you do each and every week to put on a quality show. And so we just want to thank you, and we wish you much success in 2025 as well.
Ditto.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Have a great holiday season.
Thank you.
You too, Rob. Thank you.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
And now, it's time for Hanford Insider Sports with Eric Bentley.
We'll start with girls soccer, where Hanford High continued their hot start to the season, going 4-0 last week with victories over Matilda Torres, Atascadero, Arvin, and San Luis Obispo. The Bullpups had a 9-1 goal differential in those matches with 3 shutouts and now sit at 8-1 overall on the season. Hanford West went 2-1-1 in their 4 matches, falling to Dinuba but taking down Corcoran 4-2 and Strathmore 2-0 before rounding things out with a scoreless draw to Emmanuel. The Huskies stay above 500 at 4-3-1 overall. And Sierra Pacific split their 2 matchups this week in lopsided fashion, falling to Clovis West 7-0 before bouncing back to beat Lemoore 3-0. The Golden Bears are 3-3-1 on the year. In boys soccer action, Hanford High had a solid week of competition, going 2-0-1 in their 3 matches. The draw came in a 1-1 game versus Fowler, and the wins, 1-0 versus El Diamante and 4-1 versus CVC, propelled the Bullpups to 3-2-2 overall on the season. Sierra Pacific was able to pick up their first win of the year as they took down Fraser Mountain 4-1, but fell to Buchanan, Parlier, and Faith Christian to round out the week. The Golden Bears sit at 1-5-1 overall. And Hanford West suffered their first 2 losses of the season to Woodlake and Kalinga to fall to 1-2 on the year. And in basketball action, we'll start with the girls' side, where Sierra Pacific returned from the She's Got Game Classic in Washington, D.C., where the Golden Bears represented Hanford well, going 1-1 in their 2 games, beating Oxon Hill 57-37 and falling to Riverdale Baptist 61-34. Hanford West also split their 2 games this week, dominating Lindsay 71-20 before being taken down in a low-scoring game to Tulare Union 42-31. And Hanford High is still looking for their first win of the season after taking on some tough competition, but ultimately falling to Clovis East and Bullard. And on the boys basketball side, the Bullpups won their only game, taking down Hanford West 71-52 to improve to 4-2 overall. For the Huskies, that wasn't their only loss on the week, as they also fell to Sanger West, Corcoran, and Granite Hills. And for Sierra Pacific, not all of the Golden Bears scores were reported at the time of this recording, but they were able to pick up a pair of victories, a 73-72 win versus Tulare Western and a 71-61 win over Nevada Union, and suffered a defeat to Roosevelt. As always, we'd like to cover as many local sports as possible, so if you have a score report or a story idea, make sure to email hanfordinsider@gmail.com. I'm Eric Bentley, and this has been your Hanford Insider Sports Report.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week's show. If you enjoyed this podcast and you'd like to show your support, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/Hanford Insider to make a donation. If you'd like to join the Hanford Insider email list, stop by my website at hanfordinsider@gmail.com for updates. You'll also get an exclusive copy of my newsletter in your inbox each week. I also need your help getting the word out about the show by liking and sharing on social media or telling a friend. For more information about the show, you can find this podcast on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, and YouTube at Hanford Insider. I'm also now on TikTok at Hanford Insider 1. If you have a show idea, be sure to email me at hanfordinsider@gmail.com and I'll look into it. Thanks for listening, Merry Christmas, and a Happy New Year.